investing, all that.
Right, right.
But Habib really flips the script. He's like, nope, it all starts with your mindset.
Yeah, he's all about rewiring how you think about money. It's like he says, we become what we think.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? It's more than just like thinking positive thoughts.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's what I found so interesting. He gives you actual tools and exercises to like identify and break down what he calls money blockages.
Money blockages, what are those?
It's all that stuff we carry around. Fear, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, all those things that hold us back from really achieving financial success. And honestly, a lot of us don't even realize we're doing it.
It's like these hidden programs running in the background, messing with our financial decisions without us even knowing.
Exactly. He even gets into like the whole neurochemistry of it all, explaining how our brains can actually sabotage our own financial success.
Okay, now that sounds a little out there. How does brain chemistry play into, like, my bank account?
Okay, so think about it like this, all right? Remember that last time you bought something you really, really wanted? That feeling you got, that little rush?
Yeah.
That's dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter that's released when we experience something pleasurable.
Okay.
And Habib explains that even small purchases can trigger that dopamine release, creating what he calls the spender's habit. So basically, our brains get hooked on that quick hit of pleasure we get from spending, even if it's not the smartest financial move in the long run.
So we're literally wired to crave that spending high.
In a way, yeah. It's like this reward pathway in our brain gets activated, making us feel good in the moment, but potentially leading to some not-so-great financial habits over time.
So how do we break free? Is it just a matter of willpower?
That's the thing. Just knowing about it can be hugely helpful. And Habib, he doesn't just leave you hanging. He provides a framework for rewiring those thought patterns using NLP techniques. One of the big ones he talks about is this idea of the formula for self-realization.
Formula for self-realization. All right, break that down for me. What's that all about?
So it boils down to this idea that our perception of a situation really dictates how we respond emotionally, right? So let's say you experience a business setback. If you see it as a complete disaster, you're probably going to feel super overwhelmed and negative.
Yeah, makes sense.
But if you can find a way to accept it, maybe even view it as a learning opportunity, you're much more likely to feel positive emotions, determination, resilience, that kind of thing.
So it's about consciously choosing how we interpret and react to those situations, especially those really stressful financial ones.
Exactly. Reframing those negative thoughts into something more empowering. He talks a lot about not becoming victims of our story, which I thought was powerful.
It's about taking control of your financial narrative, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of taking control, Habib lays out these stages to achieve financial freedom. He calls it his journey from dependence to abundance. I think there are like 6 stages or something.
Yeah, fascinating how he maps it all out. Each stage has its own financial realities and mindsets, and he starts with dependent, which, let's face it, most of us have been there at some point, right?
Oh, absolutely. Been there, done that. But then what? There's solvent, right? But is that just about like breaking even every month?
It's a bit more than that. In Habib's model, solvent means your income consistently covers your expenses. You're not relying on anyone else to meet your financial obligations.
Okay, so you're not living paycheck to paycheck, but you're not building an empire either.
Right. It's more like a stepping stone, a way to build a more stable financial future.
Which I'm guessing leads us to the next stage, stable.
Exactly. And this is where conscious saving comes in.
Okay.
It's not just about having a little left over at the end of the month.
Yeah.
You're actively putting money aside, maybe paying down debt, building a foundation for the long term.
So it's not about being a millionaire tomorrow. It's about making those responsible choices today that set you up for future financial success. And that's something anyone can do, no matter how much money they're making, right?
Absolutely. And that's where Habib's advice gets interesting, because he goes beyond the usual, spend less, save more. He gives specific advice, like limiting mobile phone purchases to 1% of your income and car purchases to 10%. He's all about aligning your spending with your long-term vision.
So you're saying it's about making conscious spending choices that support your financial goals, not just blowing your paycheck on the latest gadgets.
Exactly. It's about being mindful, And once you've got that solid, stable foundation, Habib says the next step is security. This is where you really start making your money work for you through investing.
But he doesn't just tell you to dump all your money in the stock market.
No, no, no. He's big on having that financial cushion first. Remember, he talks about having at least 6 months of living expenses saved up.
Yeah, like a safety net before you start taking bigger risks.
Exactly. So you can weather those unexpected storms without derailing your whole financial plan. Then, once you've got that security blanket, that's when you can start exploring different investment strategies that match your own risk tolerance.
And that's where that whole magic of compound interest comes in, right?
He loves compound interest, calls patience the biggest virtue for building wealth.
It's like delaying that immediate reward for something much, much bigger down the line. And that long-term mindset seems crucial for the next level, independence. Which, I mean, just the word itself sounds pretty awesome.
Right. It's all about having options, right? You're not just relying on one job, one income stream.
So multiple income streams, like what does he suggest?
He's got a bunch of ideas. Side hustles, online businesses, real estate, dividend stocks. Basically anything that generates income outside that traditional 9-to-5 grind. But it's more than just do this, do that, you know. He really emphasizes the mindset shift that needs to happen.
What kind of mindset shift are we talking about?
Shifting from that scarcity mindset, where you're constantly worried about money, to an abundance mindset, believing there are always opportunities out there.
Instead of focusing on limitations, you're open to seeing potential all around you.
Yes, and that's a huge part of his final stage, living in abundance, which sounds pretty amazing, right?
It does. But is it really just about having tons of money?
That's the thing. For Habib, living in abundance is about having choices, the freedom to live life on your own terms. You know, pursue your passions, give back, that kind of thing. It's about living a truly fulfilling life, not just a wealthy one.
So aligning your financial resources with your values, what really matters to you.
Exactly. And, you know, that idea of living in abundance really ties back to what we were talking about before, about not being a victim of your story. He wants you to create a life that's a reflection of what you truly value.
Creating a life you love, not just a life that looks good on paper.
Yeah. And this whole idea of purpose-driven wealth is huge for him. It's about using your resources to have a positive impact, you know.
That's where the philanthropy comes in, right? The giving back. He's a big believer in that.
Absolutely. He says true wealth isn't just about accumulating money for yourself. It's about using it to make a difference in the world.
It's like that saying, the more you give, the more you receive.
Right, exactly. And he even suggests that the more generous you are, the more abundance you attract into your life. Maybe not always financially, but in terms of, you know, happiness, fulfillment, a sense of purpose.
It's a different way of thinking about wealth, for sure. And that leads us to another fascinating part of his book. He really breaks down how he believes wealth is created. And, well, he's got some interesting thoughts on that.
He does. He's all about exchanging value.
Exchanging value.
Yeah, like people trade their time and skills for money. Entrepreneurs, they create businesses that solve problems. Investors, they provide the capital to help those businesses grow.
It's like everyone has a role to play in this whole ecosystem.
And he says the most successful people, they're the ones who understand these dynamics and figure out how to provide value within that system. Whether it's starting a business, making smart investments, developing in-demand skills, whatever it might be.
So he's not saying there's just one right way to build wealth. There are many paths, but it always comes back to providing value. And this is where his TPS formula comes in, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts. Talents, passions, skills.
Such a simple idea, but it's so powerful for, like, self-discovery, finding your unique path to abundance, right?
Yes. Habib believes everyone has this unique combination of talents, passions, skills. And when you tap into those, when you leverage those strengths, that's how you unlock your full earning potential and create a career you actually love.
It's about finding work that lights you up, that uses your natural abilities. It makes so much sense. And it's interesting because that's where he challenges that old idea that strategy is everything when it comes to building wealth, right?
Yeah, this is where that 80-20 rule comes in. He claims that strategy only accounts for about 20% of the whole wealth building equation.
Wait, seriously, only 20%. So what about the other 80%?
He says that 80% is all about your mindset, your beliefs, your emotional relationship with money.
Wow, so even with the perfect financial plan, if you haven't dealt with those mental and emotional blocks, you're not going to see the same level of success.
He's adamant about that. Ignoring those internal factors. It's like building a house on a foundation of sand. You might get somewhere, but eventually the whole thing's going to collapse.
So it's like You can have all the right tools and strategies, but if your mindset isn't in the right place, it's not going to matter.
It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on, you know? You might inch forward,
Mhm.
but you're never going to reach your full speed.
It's all about getting out of your own way, right? But how do you actually do that? He doesn't just leave you hanging there, does he?
No, not at all. He actually gives you a ton of practical tools and exercises. It all starts with self-awareness, really digging deep and understanding your relationship with money, even the subconscious stuff. He even has these thought-provoking questions that really get you thinking.
Oh, like what? Give me an example.
One that really stuck with me was, what does money mean to you? Sounds simple, right? But when you really sit with it, it can unearth some pretty deep-seated beliefs and associations.
It's like those hidden scripts we were talking about earlier, the ones that are running the show behind the scenes.
Exactly. Beliefs about whether we deserve wealth, about what it means to be good with money, about whether money is a source of stress or joy. It's all connected.
And until you bring those subconscious beliefs to the surface, they can really hold you back.
He's a firm believer in that. And that's where his NLP background comes in. He provides all these techniques for reframing those limiting beliefs into something more empowering.
So it's not about ignoring the negative thoughts. It's about consciously choosing to see things differently.
Right. It's that shift from scarcity to abundance, from self-doubt to self-belief.
And he talks a lot about not being afraid of failure, right?
Absolutely. He sees setbacks as inevitable. It's how you interpret them, how you respond, that makes all the difference.
That's so important. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it.
Exactly. He wants you to be bold, to take chances, to remember that success isn't always a straight line. There are going to be detours, bumps in the road. That's just part of the journey.
And through it all, it's about owning your choices, taking responsibility. He seems like a big believer in like constantly learning and growing.
Huge, especially when it comes to finances. He encourages readers to stay curious, to keep learning new strategies, because things are always changing, right?
It's inspiring, to hear someone so passionate about empowering people to take control of their finances, to build a life of abundance. And he's not peddling some get-rich-quick scheme. It's about putting in the work, both internally and externally, to create lasting change.
I agree. And what I find most compelling is that he goes beyond just the practical nuts and bolts stuff.
Yeah.
He really dives into the psychology of wealth. It's not just about having more money. It's about living a more fulfilling life overall.
He gives you a lot to think about, that's for sure. And I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that financial success is within reach, but it takes more than just a good financial plan. It starts with examining those deep-seated beliefs, mastering your mindset, and then taking action.
Absolutely. And while he emphasizes the power of personal responsibility, it's always important to acknowledge the bigger picture, the systemic factors that play a role in our financial lives, too.
Yeah, it's a complex issue for sure. But by having these conversations, by exploring different perspectives, we can start to create a more equitable and abundant world for everyone.
I like that.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the power of mindset to those practical money magnet tools, and of course, Habib's unique perspective on wealth creation.
It's been a great discussion.
We hope you've all gained some valuable insights from Habib's book. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's about aligning your financial goals with your values, pursuing your passions, and making a positive impact on the world. Until next time, happy diving.